Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC. Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free.
Hello and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. My name is Douglas Harper. Today we'll be sharing an interview that Mr. Patterson did with Andre Stevens on his YouTube channel. Very interesting interview. Mr. Patterson went into a little background on himself and then spoke about basically the UIC agenda, covered some of the points in the 10-point plan, the UIC 10-point plan, and he answered some questions as well. So it's a very interesting interview. Please stay tuned and check it out.
Tonight I invite the founder and the president of the United Independent Congress, Mr. Joseph Patterson, to our platform. Welcome, Mr. Patterson.
Hello, good evening, and thank you for having me, Mr. Stevens.
Blessings, Mr. Patterson.
How are you doing today?
Well, tonight I'm a bit exhausted, but as duty calls, I have to be here, giving you an opportunity to share your vision and mission for a better Jamaica.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. I'm looking forward to meeting your audience and exchanging thoughts and ideas with them and yourself.
So the public would want to know, who is Joseph Patterson?
Well, I'm an ordinary Jamaican, like most Jamaicans, born to a single mother in the poor inner city of Kingston. Grew up like most of us, struggling to make ends meet. I've been very fortunate to figure out a few things along the way and was able to acquire some education and some decent employment and, built a few businesses and was able to return to Jamaica after leaving here for some time. And today I am the president for the third registered official party in Jamaica. And I'm looking forward to seeing if we can find a way to get out of the mess that we have been placed in by 78 years of two parties exchanging seats, but still not being able to solve some core and basic problems in our country.
So you said you grew up in Kingston. Where in Kingston are you from?
Well, I was born in a place called Blake Road. That's close to Hanover Street, near to Kingston Technical.
So you basically come from downtown?
Yes, man, in the heart of downtown Kingston. I remember I don't remember, but my mother told me that the morning I was born at KPH, the night before, she and my grandmother had to escape bullets to get a taxi to get to the hospital for me to be born. So she was just sharing that with me on the basis that I might not have been here today, given the kind of volatility that they experienced then. And it's a pity because we still have the same level of volatility in the same areas down there today. And not much has changed over a 51-year period.
So which high school you went to?
Well, I was one of those kids that you would call, they called me a pretty dunce back then. I went to Dunrobin Primary, just out at Constant Spring Road there. And I managed to fail the common entrance twice, and I failed the technical entrance as well. So I ended up at Spanish Town Secondary because my stepmother told my father that I couldn't do much with my head, so I need to go learn to do something with my hand. She was being very kind, actually. And so I went to Spanish Town Secondary. But what she said was kind of pivotal. It kind of changed my mental process. And I decided I needed to prove that I could do something with my head as well. So at Spanish Town Secondary, I kind of went on a transformation process of changing that school into what I thought of then as a high school. I wanted the school to be more like a high school. So I did a number of things which resulted in me becoming head boy and science club founder and president, student council president, drama club president. Can you believe that? Drama club. And a number of other things. And so at the end of the day, I was able to pass a few subjects there and got a scholarship to go to St. Andrew Technical High School, where I also became head boy, founder of the math club, junior achievement, VP of finance, student council president, literary club editor, a number of things. And at the end of that, I earned a full scholarship to go to UTech to study electrical engineering. And from there became a teacher for a little bit. I taught at Kingston Technical, math, physics, and engineering science, after which I went to the sugar company as an engineer and was assistant manager for instrumentation. And then I left Jamaica, where I had married my high school sweetheart, Mrs. Charlotte Patterson, who I met in the 8th grade. And so we got married and decided to move to Canada. And there I became a chartered accountant and a social entrepreneur. And, after a while, we returned to Jamaica 11 years ago. And 2 years into that, I organized the UIC in terms of laying the groundwork, working out the philosophies and principles, and beginning to try to encourage Jamaicans to think outside of the box that we have been placed in by our colonial leaders. And so here we are today with the UIC, still trying to overcome all the hurdles that one has to overcome to become a mainstream political party that can make a significant difference here on the ground.
Interesting. So how old is the UIC?
Well, it depends on when you decide to count. In terms of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, we became a party on the 2nd of December, 2019. So prior to that, Jamaica did not have the kind of laws we have today. It was a free-for-all. So many parties existed back then. You had the NDM, you had the PPP, and so on. But in 2017-18, the two existing parties changed the rules in order to, in my opinion, eliminate third parties, which they successfully did. And they were the only two parties in 2018. The UIC challenged that system. And after 10 months of battle with the ECJ, we were then officially acknowledged and recognized as Jamaica's third party. So December 2nd, 2019 was the date. Prior to that, though, I've been working for a number of years on building the movement quietly. You see, one of the things I observed about third parties in Jamaica, they normally come out with a bang. They get very excited to call some press conferences, and then shortly thereafter, they die away. So I wasn't intending on having one of those. So it has been a very slow, meticulous process of building that we have been, trying to undertake, especially because we're a grassroots party. We're not funded by the PSOJ oligarchy or big money that controls the other two parties. We're committed to being a people party, to be funded and owned by the Jamaican people, including the diaspora, so that when we are elected, we're not working for big business, we're not working for the PSOJ, we're not working for the colonial powers. We must be working for the Jamaican people and the Jamaican people only. So that's our objective right now, to make sure that we remain a grassroots movement that is funded and owned by the Jamaican people.
So you're saying presently the UIC is funded by Jamaicans?
Yes, by ordinary Jamaicans, giving, here in Jamaica, the average person gives about $250 a week or $1,000 a month. And overseas, the average person gives anywhere from $10 to $25 to $50 a month. And they are the owners of this movement, and we intend to keep it that way. We do not want the UIC to become like the other parties that pretend to care about the poor, but work to protect the interests of the very rich and affluent elites in this country and the colonial powers that fund them through various schemes. We want to be entirely aligned with the people of Jamaica so we can deliver on the priorities that matter to the people of Jamaica.
Is there a code of is there a code of conduct where that is a specification in the constitution of the UIC?
Yes, absolutely. Our
And every
constitution.
member who is a part of the leadership has signed to that agreement that it solely should remain a grassroots organization dedicated from down up.
Absolutely. This is what our constitution supports. This is what our membership buy into. This is what our donors subscribe to. So if, let's say, a big man come to us with some money right now and say, hey, UIC, I can give you, $1 billion and you can take off. We say, no problem. Just make sure you're signing to this, that you agree to abide by the vision, mission, and values of the UIC. And our values are steeped in being a grassroots organization. So we'll never.
Therefore, you're saying you have no problem. You have no problem getting support from other donor agencies. However, they will have to come to your agreement.
Yes, they have to abide by our values and our principles. They cannot, in any way, shape, or form, change the manifesto, change the core values, change the vision, the mission of the UIC. You see, unlike the other parties, we don't put out a manifesto every year, a new manifesto. Our manifesto is etched in stone. It's a very clear manifesto. For example, one of the things that the other parties will never do, which we are 100% for, is to recognize the individual sovereignty of every citizen, which means when we're government and when we have changed the system, no one, for example, like the current prime minister, could in any shape, way, or form violate your personal rights and freedoms under any pretext. No SOEs can be used to violate your personal rights and freedom. No pandemic can be used. The government has to always respect the right to your life, liberty, and property, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of association, freedom of choice. So you can't force people to take anything into their bodies that they don't want to take. And so
many would argue that your that vision
mm-hmm.
is wishful thinking, Mr. Patterson.
Yes, some would argue.
Many would equally argue, Mr. Patterson, that your vision of private sector organizations signing to your code of conduct would possibly be wishful thinking, because the argument has always been of the private sector having control of who is government. So how are you going to break that barrier?
Well, I'm hoping that all of your listeners and yourself will join in the fight to break that. You see, for 78 years now, we've allowed it to happen. We've been tricked, by the way. We were tricked in 1838 when they gave us freedom and didn't give us back our land or give us back the money that should have been there because they took our free labor. We've been tricked in 1944 when they gave us the right to vote. But that right to vote was based on a false dichotomy of voting for two parties that were controlled by the plantocracy. We were tricked again in 1962 when they gave us a fake independence and did not return to us our land. So, for example, we have so many squatters because Jamaicans have been denied their land. So the UIC wants to redress all of that. We want to give back the Jamaican people what truly belongs to them.
Can you establish and say to the 5,000 odd viewers watching, can you say what is the mission of the UIC?
Sure, absolutely. Well, let me begin by telling you what the vision of the UIC is. The vision of the UIC is a Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people. The mission of the UIC is to create a non-partisan constitutional republic that will respect the life, liberty, and property rights of every citizen and provide for them a safe, clean, and orderly society where everyone can live, earn, and retire with dignity in their own country.
So, presently, how many members are a part of the UIC?
The UIC has a fluctuating membership and what you call this now, supporters. At the moment, you could say on paper, at least 5,000 persons who have indicated on paper that they're members, supporters of the UIC.
How many active members are on the UIC's database? Active, not just signed members.
Right. Active on, well, we have a number of databases, but on our internal database that is electronically driven, there's about 2,500.
Come on, Mr. Patterson, I expect you to tell me a precise number, not exactly or approximately, Mr.
Well,
Patterson.
it's
You should
always
know.
changing. It's always changing. I mean, I'm not going to give you a mathematically accurate number. It's all people are always coming on and people leave. So it's about 2,500 that's on our active database in the electronic form.
But
1,000.
if it is that your mission is all that it you purport, you should have at least had about 1 million or possibly all of Jamaica on your bandwagon. What is the problem that you're facing?
Well, when you start any new organization, you have to achieve buy-in from persons. It's new. The UIC has gone through a number of ordinary challenges. For example, um, the establishment realizes what the UIC is about. We're a massive danger to the current establishment. So you don't see us on television normally. If the Jamaican people were to hear about the UIC the way they hear about the GLP and PNP every day on television, you'd see a very different outcome. The same on radio. On social media, we have been banned and shadow banned and all kind of things. Right now, our YouTube page is shut down. Our main YouTube channel was shut down for several weeks because we speak truth. We share with people facts and information that is going on.
Mr. Patterson, how come your UIC YouTube channel was banned? Do you sure that that ban is because of external forces or within or internal forces within the UIC who possibly were doing their kind of skullduggeries? Are you sure that the banning of your YouTube channel was done by external forces?
Yes, I'm sure of that because the report came to us right from YouTube themselves. They tell us why they're banning the channel, and their reason for it is because a year ago we had a forum where we invited some professionals to talk about alternatives to the prescribed solution to the recent
Okay, don't call it over here.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
so
but remember, these platforms are seeing that if you speak about injections and all of those things,
mhm,
naturally, remember, it will be seen as you are anti injections. So
absolutely, yeah.
naturally, but it could be said, Mr. So weren't you warned by YouTube? I'm sure YouTube gives you more than one chance.
No, this one is a year ago. They just brought this up recently. So a year ago we had that what do you call it now, forum where we invited people, and so they wrote to us and tell us that they're going to delete it a year later, and that the reason they're doing so is because it's misinformation, and the misinformation was that we advocated, not advocated, but pointed out one solution one could use, a typical drug that is known. And so they weren't happy with that. That's what they claimed. Now, of course, I'm aware that there are other things. They'd warned us before about other things, that they see this or they see that. But this one, they were very
So
specific.
therefore, Mr. Patterson,
Yeah.
the argument is simply this. There were other warnings prior to. So I think very reasonably, YouTube gave you chances to review the content that you use on your platform. Wouldn't you say?
Well, there are two ways to look at it. You
Uh-huh.
could look at it. You could look at it as YouTube having given us warnings. We get warnings every day on different channels. We get warning from the government even. Our position will always be one of advocating truth and justice. And so, of course, if you're warned, for example, we were warned not to march on September 22nd when I was arrested, but we still went ahead because it was the right thing to do. And we wanted to make sure the government knows that there are Jamaicans who do not subscribe to the approach they're taking. So one, we're not going to allow ourselves to live in a society where we're just warned not to do what is right and then we don't do it. We're going to do what is right, whether or not we're being warned or not.
Interesting. So, Sir Patterson, So you believe that Jamaicans are being censored?
Well, not just Jamaicans, the entire world is now under a system of incremental censorship. We had a severe situation in the last couple of years, but it's now becoming a norm. You see the situation with Twitter, so the world is getting in a stage where little by little, all of the things we consider our rights will be taken away. There are even some people who are telling us that they want us to own nothing and be happy. And the UIC is adamantly opposed to that. We want to make and keep Jamaica a free country. We want a country where people are free to be who they want to be. People are free to speak. Even if we disagree with them, we must allow people to speak and share their views and opinions, and to do so without being, malicious or destructive, but to be able to speak. And to have their own choice, to make their own choices. What you want to do with your life is your business. What I want to do with my life is my business, as long as you or I do not use our rights to infringe on the life, liberty, or property rights of anybody else.
Let me get into the heated probe of discussions, Mr. Patterson.
Yes.
Are you related to Percival James Patterson?
Not as far as I know. I mean, I've had family members who indicated that there might be some level of relation, but I have never taken the time to clarify that. He and I have never met before, but it's very likely that we shared, similar slave masters. As you know, the names we have today are not really our, traditional names. We lost our identity because of the colonial powers. And we continue as a nation to embrace colonialism to the point where our prime minister has invited us to mourn for those who destroyed our people and stole our properties and so on. So I am very conscious of that. And it's possible that PJ Patterson and I might be related, but I don't see the relevance in it. The only relevance would be if we are working together and I am somehow seeking to advance an agenda that he has. But if you look closely at the UIC's agenda, you'll see that it is markedly different from that of the other two parties. We come down squarely on protecting the rights of the Jamaican people, while the other two parties are fully in league with continuing the systems of colonialism.
If you were prime minister today,
yes,
or Jamaica should give you an opportunity to lead this country, what are your top 3 priorities?
Sure. The number one priority for me as Prime Minister is to replace the existing constitution, to make sure we have a truly Jamaican constitution, one that is going to put the Jamaican people as sovereign and protect their rights and interests. Number 2, we must change the education system from what it is now, that prepares people to pass exams and to work for other people, to one that is going to give us back our true identity, and that is going to give us the empowerment that we need to not only survive, but thrive in a global economy. So I want to bring an Afrocentric education system to Jamaica. I want to shift the model from mostly academic thinking to where we teach our students to understand themselves, mind, body, and personality, to understand human behavior, human relationships, how to build good family relationships, how to build good personal relationship, friends relationship, and business relationships. And number 3, understanding money, the science of money, the history of money, monetary systems, so that they're not fooled by politicians and by gimmicks and trickeries that have been used over the years to rob us. So education is number 2 for me. And number 3, it's a truly free and fair market economy. One that is bottom up and not top down, that empowers the small man with the kind of access to capital, the access to the tools and a system of governance that is not overly regulatory, but one that is focused on efficiency and effectiveness, so we can grow our economies from the bottom up. We want to remove legislations and regulations that protect big businesses and suppress small businesses. We want to open up the economy, like marijuana, for example. One second, like marijuana, for example, making sure that it's open to the small man, to all Jamaicans, as opposed to having a tricky system that gives the big man the power to control the sector and squeeze out the small man or push him to just be an employee. So those are the kind of things we want to change as a government.
Mr. Patterson, I'm going to say this to you respectfully. With all that is happening in Jamaica, your three priorities, top priorities, is constitutional reform, educational reform, and a market economy.
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Patterson, are you aware that the top issue in Jamaica relates to safety and eradicating and removing the issue of crime? And at no point, Mr. Patterson, your top three priorities include or focuses on fixing crime, Mr. Patterson.
Well, if you
Mr.
ask me for more than
the crisis, let me push back a little.
Sure, go ahead.
The crisis with healthcare in this country. You have not even mentioned, Mr. Patterson, healthcare and fixing health in this country. And you're going to say to me, Mr. Patterson, your first focus is constitutional reform. What about the people who are dying? What about the many people who feel unsafe in this country? What about the many businesses in this country who are what? Dumbstruck because they can't do the kind of business. And you're going to say, oh, Mr. Patterson, I think it's a slap in the nation's face that as Prime Minister, your first set of priorities will be constitutional reform, Mr. Patterson. I believe the order of the business must be the priorities that the people of Jamaica face. Or is it that the UIC is just like the People's National Party and the Jamaica Labour Party that is totally tone deaf and not listening to the cries of the ordinary Jamaican people?
So to your point, crime is indeed a very significant challenge. First and foremost, it is steeped into the governance of Jamaica. You know this as well as most Jamaicans, that the crime problem we have in Jamaica is largely one surrounding bad governance. It begins by having two political parties that are, for all intents and purposes, gangs. They have been involved in the importation of guns. They have been in the business of creating gangs and garrison communities. They have actually created the problem that we now see as the crime problem. So if we're going to fix that, we have to understand its root cause, and we have to make sure the structures are in place. What the Prime Minister is doing now, which is pretending to address the crime problem by having endless SOEs, and many Jamaicans call for it because it gives them temporary reprieve. But I can tell you this: if we do not,
Mr. Patterson, you're just saying that many Jamaicans call for the state of emergency.
As I said before, many Jamaicans call for a state of emergency in their community because of the temporary reprieve that they receive from the same.
But wait, Mr. Patterson, where is the empirical evidence to support that argument? I don't believe many Jamaicans.
Well, it depends on what you mean by many. If you watch the news, you'll see.
You just said the many is so reasonable, I believe.
So
the many.
In a number of communities, there are citizens who call for the state of emergencies. There are businesses that call for the state of emergencies. And so people call for what they see as radical measures to get temporary reprieve. And you do see in some communities, when the police go in their numbers and under the SOE, that you see shifts in what's going on. But let's not stray from the main point. The main point you're making is that you asked me for three top priorities. And in my three priorities, I mentioned replacing the Constitution, the education, and the economy, all three of which are key to solving the crime problem. I could come and tell you a lovely crime strategy, which we do have. If you look at our 10-point plan, it's all about solving all of the problems in Jamaica. If you do not address the fact that our school system graduates 70% failures every year, if you do not address the fact that many of our young people cannot find work when they leave school, if you remove the fact that many of our small businesses are being suffocated and stifled by big business, because of government policies. And if you continue to not realize that a bad system of governance with poor checks and balances ensure that we rob the healthcare of the funds that is needed, then you would have missed the boat. What we're trying to tell the Jamaican people, and you right now, is that the problem of crime is the, what you call it now, it's a symptom of the problem. It is not the problem, it is a symptom. And if you keep trying to address the symptom and leave the underpinnings in place, then you'll have what we've had for the last 78 years. You look at the crime statistics, it has only gone up. Yes, you have moments of peaks and troughs, but the general trend of the curve is up. The same for the dollar. The dollar consistently goes down. Movement up and down here and there, but over the long term, it's always going down. You look at our economy, it has been very stagnant. And now you have the government giving us fake statistics about growth, when all it is a attempt to recover to where it was in its stagnant state prior to the pandemic. So the UIC fully understands the problem. You asked me for 3, I gave you 3. If you asked me for 10, you would have seen we recovered all of the issues you're talking about. And look at our plan, look at our manifesto. It fully covers fixing crime, fixing the healthcare system, fixing education, fixing the economy, and all of these are affected by the system of governance. A bad system, a bad constitution, such as what we have, is always.
What is so wrong with the Constitution of Jamaica?
Many things. You want me to walk you through them?
I am sure the people of Jamaica would want to know. What is so wrong with the Constitution of Jamaica that you would make it priority over everything to be the first fixed?
Well, don't get me wrong. When we say a priority, it doesn't mean it's the only thing you're working on. I'm sure you will appreciate that you're working on a number of things simultaneously. So when I take over the government, I won't be sitting down and saying, okay, come folks, we're singularly working on the Constitution. That will have its own track. You'll have the track for education. You'll have the track for healthcare. You'll have the track for crime. You'll have the track for infrastructure. So there are many tracks that will be dealt with simultaneously. But
I understand because the system of government works that way.
Absolutely. So to your question on the Constitution, I'll give you a few examples of some key problems we have constitutionally. First and foremost, the people we have running as executive leaders, our ministries, they're not subject matter experts. They are politicians. They were elected through a political process, which by itself is very tainted. So they might not be qualified or competent to lead the ministries that they're in. So that's a major constitutional flaw. The UIC system will ensure that we only appoint subject matter experts, persons who are qualified and competent to be health ministers, to be finance ministers, to be industry ministers, and so on. Each of those persons must be coming from the field that reflects their competencies and education to serve in those areas. But
I'm going to pull back to that argument, Mr. Patterson.
Sure. Yes.
I believe that not necessarily you need to be a subject from that particular discipline to govern a particular ministry. Here's my argument, Mr. Patterson. It is the need, or it is the view, that one, if there is a minister, he should find the best and the most competent, qualified persons as technocrats to streamline the vision of the ministry. So I don't believe the argument necessarily says that you need a man from that particular area. Come, Mr. Patterson, tell me why. Why do you believe a man with that particular discipline is needed to govern that particular ministry?
Sure, it's quite simple. You can look at a number of approaches that you can follow. One of the approaches you can follow is the one that you just described. That's the one that we've been following for the last 78 years. It hasn't worked. It has failed. The one I'm prescribing is not the only model you can follow, but you have to choose a model.
Do you believe that I'm going to push back, Mr. Patterson. I don't want to believe this is a combative kind of thing, but I want to be that journalist that puts you on the edge, because as a prime minister, you must be decisive in being at the place to answer the most probatory question. But Mr. Patterson, I don't believe for the past 78 years we have practiced that style. I think we have mostly practiced a style of hiring friends and cumbalos in
Good.
technocrat positions. It has not been a case where we have hired the professional based on their competencies.
Right. So I think we're saying the same thing here with a little bit of nuance difference. You're saying in the current system, we can have politicians the way we elect them right now, and we charge those politicians with when they get into office to now appoint technocrats that are qualified and competent to serve. Reasonable. That's fine. What the UIC is saying, we have a different model. Our model is we're going to have by law, by the Constitution, where the executive, the president, together with the three vice president, the GenSec and the Treasury Secretary, will nominate qualified and competent Jamaicans from anywhere around the world that fits the bill. That person will be publicly vetted by an independent elected Senate. And if they fit the bill, they will be appointed to run the ministry. That's our approach. It's not the only approach. We believe it's the best approach. And I can explain further on that. Now, another piece of our governance strategy is right now you have 21 senators. 13 of them are appointed willy-nilly by the prime minister. 8 of them are appointed willy-nilly by the opposition leader. They can be anybody they choose, and there's nothing to validate them. Fine. Bad system. We're going to have an elected Senate, 14 senators instead of 21, one elected per parish to give a focus on the parish and to make sure any laws we're about to pass have been properly vetted for how it's going to impact on the people in the parishes across this country. So we're going to have an elected Senate, independent of the executive and independent of the House, so that we have one key element of checks and balance. So that's another one. This is very important when you take it into conjunction with what we're going to do now on the House side. On the House side, we're no longer going to have partisan persons plucked and picked by partisan placed in constituencies, but rather community representatives that are nominated and elected locally by the people. They live in the area, they live in the constituents, in the community, and they will become the representative of the people. Those two bodies, the House and the Senate, will now be independent of the executive branch, and they will all three hold each other accountable because of the built-in incentives that causes them to look out for the interest of their constituencies. Here's the biggest incentive that is going to cause them to do what is right. There'll be no more private funding of election campaigns. It will be 100% publicly funded. So the rich, watch me now, whether you're rich or you're poor now, you will not, if you're a poor person, you will have no problem running for office because of the new system. Here's how the system works. Every Jamaican, free of charge, may take a good governance course. If they pass the course and meet the other eligibility criteria to run for office, they will be allowed. They'll be given the same access to television, radio, internet, town hall meetings, debates, and the people will be able to vote for them, having allowed a system of vetting to take place, fact-checking to take place, and then they vote. They will not be the PSOJ giving $350 million like they do now to a few people, and then use that money to buy votes and then tell us that we have a democratically elected government. So the UIC is going to change that. And that is going to change the entire way our government operates and runs.
I will say this to Mr. Patterson. This seems as though you have mirrored the United States system of governance.
I'm amazed that you would say that. The United States does not have a 100% publicly funded system of governance. They do not have a campaign financing strategy like what we just described, nor do they have an independent Senate like the one we just described.
Significant parts of your model resembles the US system, doesn't it?
Well, various parts of our model reflects various systems. So you still
But
have
Mr. Patterson, would you agree that
Mhm.
majority of the model that you have just envisioned is envisioned on the US Republican system of governance?
Well, it does draw on things from the US and things from other countries and our own ingenuity. So, what you're seeing in common, for example, is many countries elect a president. Some countries have an appointed president, which is what the two parties in Jamaica subscribe to. They want to have an appointed president that is pretty much the governor general. We want to have an executive elected president, somebody that the entire nation elects. We want to have 3 vice presidents. The US doesn't have that, 1 per county. And the reason for that is quite significant. You don't want to have a VP that is going to set up to get rid of the president to become the president. So you have 3 vice presidents, 1 from each county, none of whom can be sure that they would be the automatic person that the Senate would approve to be the president should the president becomes ill or otherwise incapacitated. So that's different. In our system, the president runs with 2 running mates. One of them is a general secretary, which is like the chief of staff. And the other one is the treasury secretary, which would be the minister of finance. So we'll get a chance to actually see that person up front and a part of the campaign trail, look at their credentials as a finance person and see if they're capable and able to do the job. So, there are similarities across many Democratic models and Republican models around the world. So you can't escape that. And if we go too far in terms of changing names and labels, it becomes hard for people to digest. So the key thing are the principles. You look at how they work together. Why do we need to have an independent Senate? Currently in Jamaica, we have a rubber stamp Senate, a Senate which works on a partisan model, a Senate which is controlled by 2 men, the heads of their political parties, and does not give the Jamaican people a chance to select the people that represents them. So we're going to fix that. So our Senate fixes that. Our House changes the model. We're having community representatives, people who live and work and is a part of the life of the people at the community level. And they're now running, and they're not beholden to a party, and they're not beholden to the PSOJ, because the system frees them from that so that they can think and speak and fully represent the interest of the people that has elected them to serve.
Duly noted. For all those who are in the commentary saying that I'm being harsh and I'm being very biased towards this gentleman, let me say this to you. I am sure you all are tired with all of the skullduggeries and all of the hanky-panky and Nancy business happening in our country. I have to be the gatekeeper to the next person who wants to lead this country. So if you think I'm going to give Mr. Patterson any soft interview tonight, I am not. Because the truth be told, Jamaica, journalists in this country have given too many soft interviews to both Andrew Holness and Mark Golding. Anybody coming on my platform will have to come and speak to Jamaica's gatekeeper. I don't want anybody coming with no wishful thinking and saying yay or nay. And at the end of the day, when they go into office, it's the same hanky-panky business. I want you to all know this. Mark the 7th of December 2022. Mr. Patterson has spoken about 14 senators elected independently. He has spoken about 3 vice presidents plus the president. He has spoken about his new model of governance for the Republic of Jamaica. Is it doable or not is the next case of a discussion. But I am setting a rat trap for Mr. Patterson to hold him to account. So anybody who thinks that I am being biased, I am setting a rat trap because we believe in governance of accountability on this platform. So no politician going to come over here and take it easy and just like that. Mr. Patterson wants a new and better Jamaica. I am holding him to high esteem and high account. And that is how we're setting the precedents for those to come. Let us continue, Mr. Patterson. On the point, I want to hear your crime plan. You see, you have a 10-point crime plan, Mr. Patterson. I want, because obviously the government and the opposition, as you have mentioned, have never gotten the issue of fixing crime for the past 78 years, according to you.
Well, it's a fact. It's not even according to me. It's a fact that I'm sure you can verify. But let's talk about the solution. And by the way, I do welcome your questions, no matter how tough they might be. I think you are 100% correct. You need to drill down and grill me as much as possible. Now, when it comes on to solving the crime problem, there are some direct interventions and some indirect interventions. So let's talk first about the direct interventions. There's a simple problem that the government could have done a long time ago, which they haven't done. First and foremost, well, let's step back a bit. First of all, the Jamaican people needs to know that the two colonial parties that we have in power, they set the stage for crime. They have funded crime in Jamaica. They have organized crime in Jamaica through the dons, the garrisons, and the guns. And it has mushroomed under their leadership and become an institution in Jamaica, a symbiotic institution between the party and the gangs. That's number one. So the first thing we as Jamaicans can do to get rid of crime, this is now we Jamaicans, is by getting rid of the two gangs that have our government. Once we elect the UIC, what we're doing is immediately severing the ties between government or political parties and gangs. So that's our first thing that we can do, not me, Joseph Patterson, or the UIC by itself, but we as Jamaicans. Number one. Number two, think about it, Andre. Supposing we had a government that would actually control our borders and stopping guns and ammunition from coming in to our country by just
a moment, Mr. Patterson. Let me go on. Wayne, can you just keep playing Cetera? Just give me 1 minute.
All right. Partner draw. Partner draw. Andre. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap. In the 2 for the rat them. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap. In the 2 for the rat them. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap in the parliament. Set a rat trap in the 2 for the rat them. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap in the 2 for the. Set a rat trap in a FLA. Set a rat trap in the 2 for the rat them. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap in the 2 for the rat them. Set a rat trap in the school. The one them where teeth to pit in them money. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap. Set a rat trap in the judiciary. The one them where take money under the table. Set a rat trap in the lawyer them. Set a rat trap. Take the people money and take them land title. And them not get no title. Hello? Set a rat.
Yes, Mr. Patterson, you can continue.
Sure. Right. So one of the things I was outlining very early in the process was that if the government were to control our borders, you would stop the guns and ammunition. So what the UIC is going to do, we're going to ensure that we repurpose the army. We have an army that is poorly utilized and is being wrongly utilized as well in SOEs and doing police work and so on. We want to give our army the responsibility of fully patrolling and managing our borders and our customs so that we stop the influx of guns and ammunition. That's number one. Number two, the government has been taking a bottom-up approach to crime problems. So they're doing SOEs and going and locking up young men and throwing them in jail, causing them their jobs and so on and all of that. We want to do a top-down approach. Much of the crime problem in Jamaica is led by big men in high places, men and women, who they're the ones who get to organize these massive shipments of guns and ammunitions and are involved in some serious things that many Jamaicans do not know about. So we want to start at the top and drill down. For example, take politicians. If we simply have an audit, and you can put this one down, an audit, a forensic audit of every single elected politicians, making sure that we can account for the source of their wealth, the source, not just doing some declaration, but really drilling down the source of their wealth and those connected to them and where their wealths are and how they came by it, and then monitor changes in their net worth. Do the same thing for the leading business figures and their associates in Jamaica to make sure we can identify and pinpoint proceeds of crime. And you'll very quickly see a net just coming together, and we eliminate a lot of the big players. Once you eliminate the big players, the small fries at the bottom, who they're normally locking up, some of them, and then they're back on the streets, become weak, and they no longer have the support of politicians or big business or even senior police officers and members of the judiciary. So if you put the dragnet at the top, you will squeeze off the head of the snake, if you will, cut off the head, and you'll be able to fix the problem at the bottom. Now, at the bottom, you need to do some basic things. One of them is our students leaving school now. Every child leaving high school who is not going to university or college or to a trades program, provide them a paid internship that allows them to develop the skills and competencies that they need to be professional men and women. The longer you leave a child outside without being in a gainful employment, the more they become unemployable over time. And Jamaica has been doing that very effectively. We've been rendering more and more of our citizens unemployable by not providing them a good education, which we don't do, and then B, after we fail them, we then leave them out in the open. We spend a lot of money on education. Our spending is not small, but we're spending it poorly, and a lot of that spending is being stolen, as you saw in recent history. So we have to, couple with solving crime, you have to have an education and jobs program for young people. If you put the young people in a paid internship program, you are denying the gangs access to them, easy access to them to recruit them into unsavory activities. You also need to change the way we do policing. We have to move away from the colonial, harsh model of policing and shift to community policing. And I don't mean it in a very generalistic way. You must make your police officers social workers. They must become a part of the fabric of the community, attending the churches, going to the schools, being a part of the school program, being a part of any social intervention programs that you have, and so on. And having the police live and work and grow up in the community with those young people, with the families. The mother can call them and say, my son, I give me a little problem, and him can come in there and kind of help out. And also make sure that the police is highly esteemed in the society by paying him very well, equipping him very. No policeman should have a problem buying a house, having a vehicle, looking upstanding in the society so that he's respected by the society, and he doesn't have to have a second and third job trying to make ends meet and his family suffer. If you want great policing, you have to treat your policemen and women like the great people that they are or should be, and then make sure that you acquire great talent. So don't make the police be a last resort job for anyone. It must be somewhere where some of our best and brightest want to be a police officer because it's a very good job, and it's a job that comes with esteem and a job which is looked upon by the community. Once you have the community trusting the police, having confidence in the police, having a relationship with the police, and the police seeing themselves not as enforcers of the law, but preventative mechanisms, within their communities, now you're doing a good job. So that's one of the measures. We also have to deal with the mental development of our people. And so that requires that we change the way we even do healthcare. Healthcare must become more preventative. So you want to get into our people eating right. And that's why our school program first begins with you understanding yourself, mind, body, and personality. So you know who you are. You understand the world around you. You're not going out into the world without a proper understanding of money and markets and what it takes to be a successful individual, not just by the amount of money you make, but by the character that you have developed during the process of schooling and your engagement in your community. So we have to change our model of education to change our people's mindset, have our police become somebody who's walking along the journey of life with you, changing our healthcare model to dealing with mental health and all those kind of stuff, so that when our people now go out into the world of work, they feel empowered. Their education empowered them. The police services that they have, not the police force, the police service empowers them. They feel they're respected. They feel they're being served. They feel they're being protected. They're not just something that the police come and just kind of rough you up and disrespect you and all of that. No, the police must be your friend and must be there to help and guide our young people away from a life of crime or any of that. Now, Andre, this is key. If the economy isn't working, if you have what we have now, which is a government and political centric economy, where it's connection and who know who get it, and it's not merit based, it's not a meritocratic society where you can know that if you go to school and apply yourself, there is a place for you to grow based on your competencies, and you're going to be rewarded for that. So we must change the economic model, which is why we're for a truly free and fair market economy, where instead of having government manipulating and gatekeeping the economy, you free the people to achieve their maximum potential as entrepreneurs, to supply those who need jobs and cannot be entrepreneurs, to build a more symbiotic relationship between those who can create and produce like yourself and those who need somebody to create something for them to be a part of and then work within that framework. So that's how you solve crime. It's not just heavy-handed and SOEs and making harsh statements and having foolish gun amnesties where you pay criminals to bring in their bad guns and give them money to buy better ones. We have to do better than this. And so the UIC understands the issue, and we have the solutions.
Mr. Patterson, I'm going to put you under some hot water.
Yes, please.
All of this vision that you have for the UIC, and all of this vision that you purport, a few months ago, there were allegations going around that you resigned from the UIC. Is there any truth to that argument?
Well, every time you hear something, there's always some level of truth involved. So I have been president of the UIC since its inception. And I have, at one point, offered my resignation, which the members and the candidates resoundingly rejected. And I withdrew that resignation.
Mr. Patterson, you hope to lead Jamaica one day. That's right, right?
Yes, that's one way of looking at it, yes. Let me just explain this.
Mr. Patterson,
one second.
I will give you an opportunity to speak, Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson, just work with me. You hope to lead Jamaica one day.
Yes, that's a simple answer, yes.
Mr. Patterson, you are the vision behind the UIC.
I'm the founder, yes.
And the founder. Mr. Patterson, pressure bust back. Mr. Patterson, at some point in your political career, your mettle, your political will be tested. Would you agree, Mr. Patterson?
It has already been tested and will be tested again, yes.
So why then, Mr. Patterson, didn't you pull through? Why did you offer your resignation to the party you founded? Why did you, Mr. Patterson? People will call it to say that you don't have the political guts or the political balls, Mr. Patterson. Why would you offer the resignation to a party you founded and you are principled enough to create a manifesto and a vision?
Yeah, one of the
People would
reasons.
argue, Mr.
Oh,
Patterson, that is weak leadership. What is your correspondence to that argument?
sure. Sometimes one of the greatest thing a leader can do is actually offer his resignation so that those who are in doubt of his leadership can have an opportunity to either A, offer themselves to lead openly as opposed to trying to do anything in the shadows, or B, admit that maybe it's not such a good idea for them to seek to disrespect or otherwise treat the leader in any way that should not be done. So I have offered my resignation and given my peers in the NEC an opportunity to decide whether or not they have something in mind that they were not willing to share openly, but were sharing indirectly. So that was my way of helping them to make a decision.
So you were playing political chess game.
Absolutely not. I was given
You
my
weren't
peers.
playing political psychological chess game, Mr. Patterson.
Absolutely not. I was very clear in
You
my.
said yourself.
Sorry?
You were giving them an opportunity to offer to themselves a chance to lead.
Yeah,
But
one
when
of,
you look in the caucus room, Mr. Patterson, you know that even offering your resignation, there was no one right around you to stand up. Didn't you know that when you were offering the resignation? Wasn't it you playing a political psychology of football?
absolutely not.
You
Sometimes
weren't playing that, Mr. Patterson.
no. When you're on a team and some of your team members decide that they're going to be less than cooperative, that's a signal to you. If you're a well-read leader, if you're a leader that understands human dynamics. So when you get the signal, then you give those parties an opportunity to decide whether or not they're willing to really stand up and make clear what their position is. So I have always given, my team understands me. They know that I'm a very tough person when it comes on to holding people accountable. And sometimes it gets in the way of person's ability to function effectively because they would rather a leader that pats you on the back even though you fail to deliver what you're supposed to deliver. I'm not the kind of leader.
But Mr. Patterson, what kind of pressure could you have come under to the point that you really offered to your political party your resignation?
Well, this is something that has been heavily ventilated in a number of space, and this is a number of months behind us. The bottom line is this. There was, like in any organization, and as I told the members of the UIC, you must expect to have internal challenges in your organization. We had an internal challenge, we faced those internal challenges, and we have come out stronger. So here we are today. So today I am the president of the UIC. We have dealt with our internal challenges and we move on from there. And this is common to any organization. You always have the norms, right? You have the coming together, you have the storming, and then you have the norming. Now, in politics, it's even more volatile. It's especially volatile in a third party in Jamaica because, it's not very hard for you to pay somebody to go and create disturbance in another organization. So we're not foreign to any of these things. It has been a very difficult period, very challenging one, the worst of my entire life. And we have come out better and stronger for it.
So you're saying, Mr. Patterson, that your resignation from the UIC should not be tantamount or should not be used to cloud judgment of potential voters that you have the political mettle to stand up to the crisis that you will face in Jamaica House?
No, I think the way a person should look at all of the issues that we face in this journey is whether or not we have weathered the storm. and we have weathered the storm. We have gone through many issues. It's, building a third party in Jamaica is probably the worst thing anyone could ever take on in their entire life. I have taken it on. My wife has taken it on, and together with some other strong people like our chairman, Mr. Winston Wright, and our director of recruitment, Ms. Carly Ramirez Acosta, and our General Secretary Chase Neal, we have taken on this tough challenge, and we have been dealing with it quite well, I might say, given all the odds in that we have, we go up against. So we're really working through the challenges that we face here, and I think all Jamaicans should be proud that there are some of us willing to fight what appears to be an impossible battle for the nation.
What appears to be an impossible battle. How do you see the future of the UIC and the next general election?
Oh, well, in the next general election, I expect us to have no less than about 35 candidates vying for various seats across the country. My suspicion, based on the way things are going, is that we'll probably be elected in somewhere between 5 to 10 to 15 seats if things work out generally. If we have a greater swing because of the people becoming very, very tired of what they've seen and disgusted, and we're able to reach them through the funding, we can have a bigger outcome. Everything hinges, however, on our ability to raise funds, which has not been a very easy thing to do. Many in the Jamaican diaspora and locally are watching and hoping for the UIC to do well, but are not necessarily yet doing what they need to do, which is to fund the organization. So we're still not where we need to be financially, but in terms of policy, in terms of our preparedness to lead, that we're working on every day and building solidly.
So you're saying, based on your canvas, there are about 10 to 15 seats that possibly you could win?
Yes.
Mr. Patterson, do you understand the intricacies of winning even one seat?
Absolutely.
And you're saying that your political organization is working towards 10 to 15 seats?
No, we're working towards more than that. But what I'm saying is, based on what we see today, and a day in politics is a lifetime. Based on what we see today, it is possible to win 10 to 15 seats today. Now, let me
So
tell
your
you,
canvas is showing you that, Mr. Pattis.
My what, sorry?
Your canvas is showing where possibly.
Yes. And to your point about how difficult it is, let me just give your readers an idea, or your viewers an idea of what's involved. In my constituency of Northeast St. Elizabeth, we have 4 divisions: Santa Cruz, Balaclava, Silo, and Braze River. Across those 4 divisions, we have roughly 30 polling divisions. Each of those polling divisions require a minimum of 12 workers working in those divisions. And each of those workers have to organize to bring in a minimum of 120 votes per polling divisions across 30 or so polling divisions. That requires a massive operation on the ground and quite a bit of money. So that's what we're up against. And you multiply that by 63. There are some constituencies which are also volatile, which requires greater sensitivity in terms of working in those constituencies. I am fortunate that in Northeast St. Elizabeth, it's a very civilized constituency where the people here, though they have been largely PNP over the years, in the last election, they moved and voted for the GLP. And in this coming election, they're now ready to move away from both parties.
Interesting. Healthcare. Oh, would your leadership under your government deal with the issue of healthcare?
Mhm. Now, healthcare is a very vexing issue in Jamaica. It has never really been taken seriously by any government. So, what we have is a system which is free in name only. It is a very costly healthcare system, costly in terms of the quality of care or the poor quality of care, the lack of equipment, the lack of adequate staffing, and generally a staffing population that is disgruntled and not in a position to offer what is needed to our citizens. And this is because of the model of healthcare that we have followed in Jamaica over the years. The UIC will be changing the model of healthcare entirely. We're going to move to a truly public healthcare system. And by that, what we mean is a healthcare system which is not run by the government, but is monitored or regulated by the government. A healthcare system where the government does not offer free education as a policy, but rather a healthcare system which is fully open to run properly, and then we fund those who need to be funded. We're going to have a national health insurance program, which is market driven, and then we're going to underscore and support those who need help, as opposed to trying to offer a blanket system to everyone, which turns out to be a poor system. We're going to have a system which is of the best quality, but is accessible to all by targeting funding to those who need the support from government to access
Yes,
that system.
interesting. So, Mr. Patterson, I never heard you speaking about having the diaspora more involved in governance.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I think we're the most progressive political party in the history of Jamaica when it comes down to the diaspora. The UIC has a policy that Jamaica is more than just the land of Jamaica. Jamaica is the entire Jamaican population, wherever you are around the world. So our government is going to change the constitution to embrace Jamaicans wherever you are. So that means all Jamaicans will be able to vote in our elections. No matter where you are in the world, you'll be able to vote in Jamaica. All Jamaicans will be accorded a 100% duty-free return to Jamaica. So if you want to come home, you're allowed to come home with everything, all your bag and pan, your business, everything you want to come back with, without 1 ounce of duty being charged to you. And every Jamaican will be entitled to hold any office in Jamaica, even if you have dual citizenship. This is going to change the trajectory and fix the problem of brain drain. Remember, many Jamaicans are away from Jamaica because they're economic refugees. They were forced out of Jamaica by bad governance. And so we should not punish or penalize them because they have gone abroad, made something of themselves, and in many instances, send home billions of dollars to help poor children and families here in Jamaica to survive the harsh realities of bad governance here. So the UIC wants to fully and unequivocally embrace Jamaicans everywhere in the world and give you full access and full rights to be fully involved in the Jamaican economy, in the Jamaican life. As a matter of fact, if you're overseas and want to start a business in Jamaica, you're not even coming back here to live, but you want to start a business here, the government is going to give you priority, to give you the information you need to understand the demographics, to understand every inch of the economy that will allow you to make an optimal decision so that you can invest with confidence and help to grow and build the Jamaican economy, to create jobs and give us a quality environment where you will be willing to come back and retire to.
Interesting. So you want to target the almost 3 million members of the diaspora?
4 million, yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, we want to make them all Jamaicans again. So you live in New York, you're 100% Jamaican. You can vote, you can run for office. You live in France, you live in fact, the UIC is quite interesting. Our funding, when I look at our funding coming in, you see Jamaicans in Japan, Jamaicans in Australia, Jamaicans in Germany. So there are Jamaicans all over who want to get involved in building their country, and we want to give them that opportunity. We want to say it's Jamaica for all Jamaicans, no matter where you are.
Hmm. Looking back to where you started and where you are now, you have made blunders. Would you agree?
Well, I'm sure that I have not done everything the way somebody else would have done it. So when it comes up, well, for one, I'm not a politician. So I'm not somebody who has
So if you're not a
no,
politician, or if you're not a politician and you want to become president of the country,
follow me
or you want
carefully.
to turn prime minister if you're not a politician, Mr.
Follow me
Mr. Patterson,
carefully.
that argument is flawed.
Follow me
Respectfully, that argument is flawed,
follow
Mr.
me
Patterson.
follow me carefully. So I am not a career politician. So if you look around in Jamaica today, many of our politicians are like lifetime politicians. They've been doing this forever. You have now some who bring their sons and daughters and their wives in, having been, our prime minister, for example, he pretty much went from university right into politics and quickly into an MP seat. So he has been, for as long as he has been in politics, I have been in the private and public sector working. I've been in government, I've been in private industry, I've been in charities. But he has spent all of his life in politics. So he is a master of the game that we have come to know of politics. I'm not a master of the game. I've spent my time studying the problem, though, of governance. One of my greatest skill set as a chartered accountant is that in many of the jobs that I've held and with my clients in my private practice has been looking at systems. And Andre, one of the reasons why, for example, many businesses fail here in Jamaica, and I've done a few Jamaican business, and I see that the big reason why many fail is that they don't have proper internal controls. They're very weak on the control side. They're excited about the product. They're either inventive and creative, but they're poor on internal controls and they're poor on financial management. The same thing applies to our government. Very poor on internal controls and very poor with financial management. Now, those are the skills that I bring to the table primarily. Systems of controls, systems of checks and balances, and having a very, very in-depth understanding of money, economics, monetary systems, and so on. So I'm going to bring those kind of skills. Now, where you could say would mess up is that I am not a skilled politician. So I've had to learn that part. And it's actually a drawback for me because I really prefer to focus on solving the problem. While I know there are those who are good at the game of politics. So they're good at saying the nice things and pretend and so on. I'm not very good at the pretending side of politics. I'm very focused on the system problems, the policy problems, what we really need to do now to make Jamaica a first-class country.
Mr. Patterson, I'll ask the question again because you skirted around it a bit.
Oh, sorry, forgive me. What was the question?
Reflecting on 2019 to 2022, are there any blunders that you have made that you would have done differently or corrected?
Well, there are things I would have done differently, yes. There are many things I would have done differently if I knew then what I know now. One of my strengths and weaknesses is that I am a stickler for performance management. And I have learned since returning to Jamaica and working particularly in the UIC that that's not a big part of our cultural setup. Persons are prepared to hold a position, receive accolades for the position and praises for the position, but not perform in the position. And they're not prepared to have blunt, straightforward dialogue. So for example, when I go to my NEC meeting, here's my position. In the public, we're nice and clean and pretty. In the NEC, when we come together, we take off the gloves and we must talk and deal with the issues. For example, when we go on a project, when we do any project, when we come back after the project, I want to know what went right, what went wrong. Who was responsible for what went right? Who was responsible for what went wrong? And what must we do differently to do it better next time? And I expect every one of the persons that have been given an assignment in our project plan to give a full accounting and take full responsibility, including myself. That includes simple things like showing up on time, simple things like communicating, simple things like taking responsibility for those under your charge, simple things like making sure that your deliverable is of a quality that is going to positively impact the other person's deliverable. And when we get together in an NEC meeting, that's what I am dealing with. Now, some persons I have learned don't appreciate that kind of leadership. Their approach is, yeah, man, but we do it and it done. And, it come out okay, even though they didn't play their part. Somebody else covered for them, yes. So to the public, it seemed okay. But I know, and you know, and we need to know that here is where we had lapses. And here's who's responsible for that. And how are we going to fix that for next time? So I believe in growth. We must keep growing, continuous improvement. And for us to do that, we must be frank, to be brutally honest about what we have just done and what it means. And so that is not the culture here in Jamaica, sadly, I must say. We are happy with hiding things and pretending and then sussing behind each other's backs, as opposed to having open, free, and fair dialogue and taking responsibility for our tasks. And not to now hate the leader because he holds you accountable for your tasks.
So, what is your timeline? What is your timeline should you become elected president or prime minister of this country, or want the constitutional reforms to take place?
Sure. So what we're going to do in the first year of my administration, we're going to have a constitutional committee, which is going to complete the draft. We already are doing the draft now. So they're going to complete the draft, have going around the country in town hall meetings and having the people at every level participating in discussing aspects of the Constitution that make sense to them and relevant to them. And at the end of the first year, we're going to have a referendum on a new Constitution. That Constitution, however, will not take effect until the end of the first 5-year term of my administration under the existing Constitution. And the reason for that is, once we have voted on it, we now need to put all the supporting regulations in place to support a full implementation. In between that year 1 and year 5, we're going to implement within the current Constitution what we can do to adjust things. For example, we're going to change the tax law. Jamaica will only have 2 taxes when we're finished. There'll be an income tax on income from all sources, and there'll be a sales tax. The first tax will be for public goods and services only, and the second tax is going to be for poverty elimination. So we're going to have a real war on poverty. We're going to do the things that must be done to get rid of poverty, such as ensuring every child has the proper nutrition, proper health care, proper education, and a housing solution that puts people in the quality homes so that they can start living well now and paying for that over time in a way that is manageable. We're going to adopt some of the Singaporean model, that where they were able to get 93% of their people to home ownership. We're going to get 98% of Jamaicans to home ownership in the shortest possible time. You're looking at a major housing boom, which will be coupled with a massive agricultural program to get Jamaica to become the world's leading organic producer of food. We're going to call ourselves the organic food capital of the world.
Noted with that. I'll open the phone lines for the public to ask you the questions. It's rather interesting, your take. It's rather interesting the take you have taken on many of these issues. I could have gone in a little bit more and be very combative, not even combative, but very more probatory. But I decided to give you the time to lay your vision for Jamaica. But I will have a few callers now.
Sure.
Good night, Mr. Steve, and good night, Mr. Patterson. I've been listening to you for a while, and you've said, go to all of it, but what I want to focus on is your 10-point plan. As Andre has pointed out, the priorities for your plans are kind of misplaced, because I don't think Jamaica is so far pressed to want their constitution changed versus having a crime plan that can reduce crime. I think that the Jamaican electorate right now is looking for leadership in that area, where you can have someone or an organization come in and just our approach to solving crime in Jamaica, and this is our approach to solving the healthcare matters in Jamaica. I don't think changing the constitution is a necessity.
So this caller is saying, please, are you getting enough time to ask the question? Because I tell you all the time, Ra, when you come on this platform,
go ahead.
When you come on my platform, get directly, you don't have to. What he's saying, Mr. Patterson, is that he doesn't believe that majority of Jamaicans are caught up wanting to have a discussion on constitutional reform. Jamaicans are more pressed on crime, education, poverty reduction.
Let me respond to that. Let me respond to that.
Okay, thank you, Ra. He'll respond to you.
The caller, like yourself, is 100% correct that the Jamaican people are not caught up on about constitutional reform. They're not. That's not a high priority thing for the Jamaican people right now. And the reason for that is because the Jamaican people do not realize the relationship between what they want and what the problem is. So we want a safe Jamaica, all of us. We want a clean Jamaica, all of us. We want an orderly Jamaica, all of us. We want an economy that works. The UIC, and this is why you need leaders, the UIC has taken the time to study the problem, and we recognize that a key part of the problem, in fact, the sole source of the problem, is our system of governance and leadership. So if we don't fix the system and we don't fix the leadership, we can talk crime plan until we're blue in the face. All we're going to have is when the PNP is in opposition, they'll tell you they can fix it. And when you elect them, they don't. And when the JLP is in opposition, they'll tell you, elect us and you'll sleep with your windows and doors open. And then when you elect them, they don't. So we're not here to give you fancy, fake promises. We're here to solve the real problem: bad governance and poor leadership. So we're going to fix
Mr. Patterson, thank you for that.
Yes.
Yes, good night, caller. Welcome.
Good night. So my question is based on the checks and balance. Whatever you said is fantastic, but I do believe that Jamaica needs a constitutional reform, because what we reform the constitution is good for the education and cancer. Now, the impeachment has been on the table for 2016. Now, what is your checks and balance for person said the Prime Minister or President goes, oh sorry, we need a balance for them, like an impeachment act to get the most of the country, get the most of politics in general.
He's asking about the balance of power and the impeachment act. Will that be a priority under the new constitutional reform that you speak about?
Okay, we will have a
Thank you, caller.
Yeah, we will have an impeachment element, but I think I want to clarify something.
No, an element of impeachment. Why not the full form of impeachment?
No, when I say an element, I mean impeachment as one element of the good governance model. Okay, not a piece of impeachment, but It's one element of the full checks and balance. But what you need to understand, impeachment is after the fact. So the horse go through the gate and now you're going to try to correct it. What we're going to do, look what we have done right now. Right now, here is the incentive for corruption in our government. The Prime Minister is able to appoint his own MPs as ministers of government, and all of them are hoping and wishing he appoints one of them. And he's able to do so with impunity. He can appoint anybody he wants without any accountability. The same thing, he is able to pick up 13 people from anywhere and drop them into the Senate without any accountability, and then draw from those 13 and draw from him 49 and make them minister and give them tremendous power and conflict of interest because they are both legislators and executive persons, right? They're executing. The UIC breaks that up. The executive branch now will be completely separate from the legislative branch. And you have your two legislative branches independent of each other. And because of the kind of campaign financing you have, they are incentivized to work like a hawk to monitor every aspect of the executive branch, because that is how they're going to make their mark and win their next election. So if you put those checks and balances in, and I could explain it better or more, but if you put those checks and balances in, you now have, let's call it 63 members in the House, which are now equal, by the way. They're no longer government versus opposition. You just have 63 hawks in the House, if that's the number, who are sharpened on the executive, which is separate from them. And you have 14 senators who must look out for them 14 parishes, because a desk of them will get them vote from. And there's no money coming from the party or from the PSOJ. So they must deliver for their constituents, just like how the 63 now must deliver for their constituents. So the executive branch is going to be right here in the middle with policies and laws and a budget that they have presented, which have been passed by the House and Senate, who are now monitoring vigorously to see if they're implemented properly. So every misappropriation of $1 will quickly be found. And there is no incentive for anybody to cover up for the executive branch because they're not connected. They're separated. Separation of duties, proper checks and balance, the removal of conflict of interest. So you fix the problem. Having a little more ceremonial process about impeachment, too late. The man thief the money already, mash up the country already. Let us stop him at the front end and then have an impeachment process at the back end like they currently do, in other countries. That's nice. But I want to stop the problem at the front end and give the Jamaican people the quality healthcare, quality education, quality roads up front, as opposed to figure out how to get rid of it.
Okay, Mr. Patterson, thank you. We're asking you to keep the responses in 30 to 45 seconds.
I shall try.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, Mr. Stevens, and let me say good evening to Mr. Patterson.
Yes, Mr. Sir, just get into the point. We don't have the time for the nice up. Get into the point. Remember, a lot of people want to make their points,
Okay. Well, what we have experienced in Jamaica, for erosion, this thing has spiraled out of control for a very long time, and there's no way any leader can address crime without having some sort of policy to deal with the issue. You can't just come in as a new leader and police your way out of this situation. So what Mr. Patterson has said earlier is absolutely correct. There's no other way you can address the issue of crime in Jamaica in the current state that it is, unless you have implement some sort of policy to address the issue. And then over time, the crime will slowly decrease. It will never be done overnight. I can assure you, this thing has been taking place for a very long time. And so you see, it's going to take some time to Generally speaking, what we must do is address the issue by implementation of policies that will have a trickling down effect.
Okay, caller. So you agree with Mr. Patterson's crime plan? Caller?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much. So somebody agrees with your crime plan, Mr. Patterson.
Good to hear.
I want to put in a question to you. Should you be caught up in a hung parliament, which political party would you side with to create government?
None of the above. I look at issues. So let's say, for example, I was the deciding vote when it comes on to this SOE thing that we have now. If it was really designed for that kind of stuff. For me, I would present to the Jamaican people before making a decision the facts and show them what has happened over the last 6 to 7 years of the government's policy of endless SOEs. The people clearly see.
Mr. Patterson,
Yes.
I will ask again. Policies, yeah, but at the end of the day, if you need, Mr. Patterson, a government of the day needs to be formed. You're part of a hung parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you see presently have similar political ideologies as you? Which political party you see have similar political ideologies as the UIC, who possibly you would side with to create the government of the day?
None of them have similar policies as the UIC. So what I would have to do, here's how I'd make a deal with the two parties. Since we have a hung parliament, and so nobody can form a majority without my participation, and since the current system allows the party with the majority to have the prime minister, I will ask that I be the prime minister. And then whichever party agrees to have me as prime minister will then, I will side with that party. Why would I do that? It would ensure that the policies of the UIC becomes the policy of the government. Because as prime minister, I will appoint the ministers and I will appoint the 13 senators. And as prime minister, I'll be able to set the legislative agenda.
What are you ambitious?
No, it's not ambition. It's about pragmatism. If I would never join the JLP or PNP in continuing their form of governance, which is undermining the interest of the Jamaican people.
Interesting.
Otherwise, I would have joined them already. It's much easier to join one of them than to do what I'm doing.
Good night, good night. So Mr. Patterson says anybody who sides with him for him to be the prime minister for the day, that's the party he would work with. Interesting argument. A member of the LGBT community said, Mr. Patterson, if the UIC party gets elected, will you acknowledge the LGBTQ community?
The approach that the UIC takes, and me in particular, is that we recognize the rights of all Jamaicans to their life, liberty, and property. We're not in the business of singling out any special interest group for special mention or special favors. So all Jamaicans will have their rights protected. Your right to your life, your right to your liberty, and the right to your property. As government, our job is to protect those rights of all Jamaicans equally.
Noted, sir. You guys getting your answers in? Okay, anybody's calling, just call. I'm taking about 4 to 5 more questions. Hello, good night.
Good night, Andre. Good night. I just like to comment I'm looking at the comments in the comment section, and I just want to say, Jamaica, wake up, wake up. I am not affiliated with any party, but this man, to me, he is speaking the truth. A while ago, he could have said LGBTQ club, whatever, whatever. He said it's not in the business of singling out a particular group. He could have said the things that we wanted to hear. But I do believe that the man is speaking the truth and what he wants for Jamaica. Does Jamaica want more the same? Look what's happening. They are taking over the land. They are investing in Jamaica. What the SOEs are doing is keeping the poor people, keeping the people down, confining them, restricting them. What they're trying to do is push Jamaican citizens who are in the lower rung of society, in the socio-economical group. They want to push them in the corner and have people from Dubai, people from other places, international investors come and buy up the property, buy up the beaches, buy up the land, create resorts, build places for the rich, for the wealthy to come to Jamaica. What's going to happen to you, Jamaica? Wake up, man. Wake up.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that, caller. Thank you. Hello, good night.
Good night.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask a question to Mr. Patterson.
Mm-hmm.
Does he know the background of all these councils that he having? Because I've asked him before via social media, and he blocked me about a particular councillor that he has in Clarendon. And I asked him, do you know anything about that guy? I told him, and he blocked me. So I want to know if he changed that councillor or do a background check on that councillor, because that person is that councillor. He is mentally unstable and is very abusive.
Thank you for that. Mr. Patterson, they're asking if you have done enough due diligence on all, or you have vetted all the councillor candidates and MP caretakers.
Yeah, we do try to make sure that we vet all of our councillors, but I can't say that with absolute certainty we have caught everything. So if you are aware of a councillor or any member of the UIC in a leadership role that you have learned something about or know something about, please send this to us. Our email address is info@uicjamaica.com, or you can WhatsApp to our number 2930812 and let us know so we can investigate further. The lady who just called said that she was blocked. My sincere apologies for that. Please write to us and let me know what happened there. You said I blocked you, so that's quite interesting. But I won't say we are 100% on being able to tell what everybody has done. Jamaica doesn't offer you a good database, by the way, on people. You do a police record check and you're surprised to get a clean record, and then sometime later on you hear something else. So, we do our best, but we're asking you to help us. And that's why we like when our candidates come from the community. So we hear from you in the community what you have and what you know about them. So please let us know and we'll do our best to fix it.
Noted, Mr. Patterson. Noted. So he's saying it will take a tantamount duty for him to really vet everyone, but he's open to having discussions, private discussion with persons who are willing to give him a lead into the different candidates to say whether or not yea or nay, because he believes in the community approach where the community has all right to electing their leaders. Good night.
Yeah, good night, teacher.
Simple, precise, direct question.
Two issues.
No. One tonight. I can't give you a chance to speak on it.
All right. In terms of the Constitution, we have it as number one. I'm saying it always is that a person must be a dual citizen and able to can take part in an election within the country. How you would support that with the constitutional reform?
He spoke about that already. He said that one, he's expanding where in which the diaspora can have a direct impact in voting in elections. And if the diaspora can vote in elections, it equally means that you being a part of the diaspora will also give a chance for you to sit in the parliament. But I believe, though, what Mr. Patterson should have introduced, and this is a cause for concern, rather than you say, Mr. Patterson, that members of the diaspora should be able to sit in our parliament, I believe you should have said, or this is what I believe the UIC should say, that there will be a 15th independent senator who will be the voice of reasoning or the voice for the diaspora. Don't you think that's a more reasonable argument, Mr.?
No, I don't. But I do understand the logic behind it, and it sounds reasonable. But I don't. The senators are going to be senators. They're going to represent the 14 parishes, and all of our elected representatives are going to represent Jamaica and different aspects of Jamaica. You know, whether it's the county or the constituency or the parish.
But the parish, you could equally say that the diaspora is equally a parish.
I know what you mean, and there are actually those who are proposing that, but I don't, and I'll tell you why. We're not looking for diaspora geographical representation. We're looking for Jamaica to be the issue. The issue is all of us as Jamaicans considering the issues of making sure we have a solid Jamaica, right? So the diaspora will, like every other Jamaican, vote on the issues of Jamaica. They're not voting on regional issues outside of Jamaica. They're voting on the issues of Jamaica. So they're voting for a president. They're voting for 14 parish senators. So if you're a diaspora that came from St. Catherine and you wish to align your vote with St. Catherine, you're voting for St. Catherine. Or you are from Manchester, you're voting for Manchester. Or you're from Bethel Town in Westmoreland, you're voting for the representative from Bethel Town in Westmoreland. So we want the focus to be on Jamaica. The fact that you're in the diaspora is because all of Jamaica is diverse. We have people who have moved away for various reasons, most of them economic, and we want you to get back into the process. So that's all. So the gentleman, however, his real contention is that you should not have dual citizenship. That was his real contention. And let me answer that briefly. Right now, you can have dual citizenship and sit in Jamaica's parliament. It's just
where do you get that, Mr. Patterson?
I know. Let me clarify for you. Listen.
Why would you say that? Because everybody who has been identified as a dual citizen by election had to be held.
So I'm going to correct Hold on. Let me correct the misunderstanding.
Unless you're a member of the Commonwealth, you can't just sit in the parliament like that. Mr. Patterson, I'm well educated on the laws of the parliament. I can't let you tell the nation.
Could you listen?
Mr. Patterson, you cannot tell I am well versed on the Constitution of Jamaica as you equally are.
No, it cannot.
Okay, are you ready for me to
Where
speak?
in the Constitution gives account to a member being a dual citizen?
May I speak now?
So if we can have dual citizen, Mr. Patterson, you're saying that Jamaica has evaded and eroded so much elections being spent on because people are they have to give up. Remember, Darrell Vass had to give up here. Several members of parliament had to give up their dual citizenship.
May I speak now? May I speak now, gentlemen?
So many had to give it up. So how then, Mr. Patterson, you're going to say that they're able to sit in the parliament as dual citizens?
May I speak now?
No, caller, goodbye. I need to let the man. I need to let him give the chance to speak now.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. So here's the plan. Our current constitution allows you to sit as a dual citizen if you're a citizen of a Commonwealth country.
But you can't be seen as a dual citizen as a Commonwealth. Because you're a part of a constitution governed by what? The constitutional monarch.
Gentlemen, could you please calm down? Let me explain. So for example, if Andre happens to leave Jamaica and decides to become a citizen of Bangladesh and returns to Jamaica and wishes to keep his Bangladeshi citizenship and resides in Jamaica for 12 consecutive months, he may run for office and sit as even prime minister with his Bangladeshi citizenship and his Jamaican citizenship, because Bangladesh is a part of the British Commonwealth. However, if Andre Stevens becomes a citizen of the USA, because the USA is not a part of the British Commonwealth, he would have to give up his US citizenship in order to sit in Jamaica. But he may have a St. Lucia citizenship, he may have an Indian citizenship, he may have a Canadian citizenship, he may have a Bangladeshi, he may have any Commonwealth country citizenship together with Jamaican citizenship, which makes him a dual citizen and sit in the Parliament of Jamaica. That is the current colonial law that we're under.
So so I'm going to ask, my question is to that now. No, caller, you have to hang up now. Goodbye. I have to give other people chance. One. Mr. Patterson, you know, let me end the argument. Let me end the argument because let me end that argument because it will continue. Because I could rebut that. But let me end the argument because I have a school of thought that is totally different from yours. But yes, hello, good night.
Yes, good night, Mr. Stevens. Good night, Mr. Patterson. I have two quick questions.
One question.
All right. I'd like to know the prominent names of the persons that will run his cabinet and how much funds he's projected to have to run his campaign. I'll hang up and listen.
He wants to know the influential members of your cabinet and two, where you're going to get the funds to run your campaign. That is it, right, Underwear? How much will it take to run your campaign?
To run his campaign.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that question, caller. We will reveal the influential members of our cabinet shortly. I cannot preempt that until the NEC has approved each of the persons. In terms of our campaign financing, we need approximately 10 million per constituency.
10 million per constituency, so you need $63 million?
Yes.
No, it wouldn't be 63.
Sorry?
You didn't need on $630 million?
Correct.
Interesting. So who is going to fund? So you're saying that Jamaica is going to fund that $630 million to run your campaign?
Yes. Currently, Jamaicans in the private sector that we call the PSOJ elite provides that amount of money or more, in fact, not or more than that to the two political parties, the two major parties, the two colonial parties. We are going to get our funding from the 4 million in the diaspora and about 1 million from the local Jamaican community.
So how is the funding for your party right now?
How is it right now?
Mm-hmm.
It's fairly small. This year, I think we're only going to have in the kitty about $5 million. Last year, it was about $3 million. So nothing significant. So we are still growing and still convincing the Jamaican people to get behind us. It's a long, tedious process, but it's necessary if we're going to have the kind of reforms that we need. If we follow the existing model of the other two political parties, you'll get more of the same. It will be unworthy of the Jamaican people to have a third party to follow the same model as the other two.
Okay, thank you. Hello, good night, caller.
Hello, good night. Mr. Patterson, good night. I have want to touch on something that's happening recently in the news, and it's regarding the uptick of violence in the schools, the point where fatalities occurred. And since you mentioned that you're a previous head boy and used to be a teacher at one point, what do you think currently lacking in our schools today? And how can we maintain a safer school system so teachers could come and teach freely and other students are allowed to learn as well without being interrupted? I have another question.
No, one question, caller.
I have to think. Let me say this. One is the sex offenders registry. A young lady came to Andre and spoke have these people still lurking around our children. And the sex offender registry, it exists and it doesn't exist. I would like to know I would like to respond to those 2 points that I've got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I could not hear much of what was said. Could you summarize for me, please?
She's asking, one, with the upsurge of violence in our schools, what's your strategy for that? And 2, how will you make the sex offender registry a priority?
Okay. So in terms of the upsurge in violence in our school, we have to understand the reason for this. We're just coming out of 2 years of lockdown. We have taken away from teachers the tool of how we used to discipline students using corporal punishment, but we have not trained them in how to otherwise maintain classroom discipline and so on. The model of schooling also is now disconnected from the reality of the economy globally and locally. So students are not seeing the connection between what they're doing and how it's going to help them in the future. So until we change those variables by retraining our teachers to how they should manage classrooms and students and how to instill discipline without the traditional method that we used to use. And if we do not address the disconnect in our curriculum from the reality that the students are seeing in their society, and if we don't cause the students to have an out, how are they going to leave school and do what? What am I going to do? They're seeing where it is the scammer and other lesser quality individuals who are having access to means, and those who they should be respecting, like their own teachers and their police officers, they're not seeing any reason to. So we have to remunerate teachers differently. We have to make teachers, again, a revered profession, a respected profession, one where when you're a teacher, you are an upstanding citizen because your job pays well and you have to be of a certain caliber to get into the teaching profession and so on. So it's a multiplicity of things we have to do. It's not going to be an overnight solution, but we definitely cannot do what the current government is doing, which is absolutely nothing. We have to immediately get our students a curriculum that is in tandem with the global reality. And we have to make sure our teachers are trained to deal with the kind of situation we have now. We all know that the parents are failing. And the reason for that is that the 70% we fail every year, they're the ones who are now parents today, and the impact of their parenting are being felt. So we must have parenting education, and we can't just have parenting and education. We have to incentivize parents to want to participate in that. So it's a whole number of things we have to do in our education sector, and that is why the UIC has a different education model that is Afrocentric, that is really driven by teaching the whole person, a holistic approach to learning, and so on. I could say more, but 30 seconds is kind of a short period.
And what is your take on
the sex
offender registry?
I think it's very important that we have a proper registry of all criminals and crimes committed at whatever level, small or large, so that when we try to do a background check on anyone, we do have a reliable database that is properly maintained, that we can get proper background checks on persons, not just for sex offenses, but for all offenses, because this is really affecting us. We also need a better credit rating system, and it all falls together with a proper ID system, a proper database, and so on. So there are a number of lapses of government which is causing all of these problems, including the lack of a proper sex offenders registry.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to have 2 persons more. I'll call in the 2 persons. Yes, Sharnit, 1 question.
Oh, hi, good night. Sir, I applaud you in standing and trying to take a stance as it relates to making Jamaica a better place. My question is in regards to the permanent displacement of Jamaicans. We know if any government wants to implement a new rule or a new order, it takes about 7 to 10 years to break people mentally into acceptance. My question is, do you believe the Jamaican government is allowing crime by just implementing a ZOSO as opposed to permanently coming up with a crime plan? In so doing, that will displace Jamaicans, causing a two-tier system in Jamaica where there is a zone where the regular Jamaicans are living in a specific zones, and the foreigners and the big business people coming in with their money has privilege to move around. Because I've noticed across Jamaica that there's still zones, one being Caymanas Park, and they're setting up zones where it's going to be rich people living. What is your take on the Jamaican government not addressing the crime plan, but using ZOSA to get our mind conditioned to living under special zones, implement
Okay.
for them to live in zones and calling that a crime plan? I will hang up and listen.
Thank you, Shirley. Yes. Mr. Patterson?
Okay, it was a lot there to digest, but if I understood correctly, let me just tell you the UIC policy for housing and for Jamaica, as opposed to trying to fully dissect that. We have a housing policy whereby we're going to make all of Jamaica look, smell, and feel like a tourist resort, because we want to respect all Jamaicans. We're going to zone Jamaica, if you will, so that we protect our agricultural lands and keep them for agriculture, and actually use them for that. And we're going to move into more of a high-rise kind of building structure, and we're going to eliminate the garrisons and the ghettos. So we're not going to have them anymore. We're going to transform those areas into quality living spaces with, daycare centers, playgrounds for children, parks for the family to enjoy, lots of green spaces that are manicured and maintained. Just like how the Prime Minister's house is and how he wants his place to be nice, we want all of Jamaica to be nice. We're going to bring in place a massive home ownership program that's going to give every Jamaican a chance to own a decent home, regardless of their economic standing. This is very important. So we're going to have a long and short-term model that allows persons of different economic means to live in quality spaces. None of these spaces are going to be designated for poor people. We're going to have places to live, and people will live there. So you're not going to have poor communities anymore. You're going to have a proper mix. If you want to understand a little about what we're going to do, look at Singapore. They have developed their housing stock in such a way that it's a proper mix of individuals for cross-pollination. So you don't have these ghetto communities being developed or garrisons or so on. What you have are quality buildings, quality services provided in those buildings, staffed community centers, and that kind of stuff to give the people the undergirding they need to achieve their full potential. So we have a grand design that is going to be fully funded by how we're going to use the rest of our lands on two levels. One, a massive organic food production that mirrors the Netherlands approach and builds on top of it, plus making all of Jamaica a tourist destination. So instead of you going to the North Coast or the South Coast or, Montego Bay, instead all of Jamaica becomes a tourist product. So every community now have sidewalks, fixed addresses, street lights, cared for spaces, green spaces. So even in the wild areas, you have trails and parks and stuff. You have manicure edges. The place look like it's for people. It's caring for people. So we're going to respect our local Jamaican citizens and therefore be able to invite the rest of the world in to be a part of the country.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yes, hello, good night.
Good night, Andre. Good night, Mr. Patterson.
Good night.
Do you have any plans to register license plate like parishes that the police can easily identify people and use the TRN number like a database that when the police pull over somebody and run their number, they could know exactly who they're dealing with, if it's a hard criminal
Okay,
or
thank you for that. Do you have the plan to make
I got it.
the,
I got it.
okay, thank
Yeah,
you. Mhm.
it's a lovely thought, and I understand where it's coming from. It's done in other countries quite well. I wouldn't go the route of having different license plate per parishes because we're too small a country to take on that unnecessary cost. However, I do agree with you that the police must be able to quickly run your license plates and get all the information, on you, who's the owner, and so on and so, whether it's insured and all of that. So yes, proper identification of persons and proper linking in our database and giving the police the tools they need to do their jobs. But we have to do it in an efficient manner. We can't afford to just do things because they're done elsewhere nicely. We need to make sure it's cost effective for us as well.
Thank you. Mr. Patterson, on behalf of the Partner Draw team, thank you for coming on my channel. It was a pleasure having you for the past 2 hours, 2+ hours,
Yes.
having a wholesome discussion.
It's
And
amazing. I had no idea the time went so fast, but thank you for having me as well. And I've enjoyed it immensely. And I'm looking forward to a part 2 because you said you wanted to ask me some tougher questions or to drill down on some. And I think for your viewers, it would be worthwhile for us
well,
to
let
have
us see what the future holds. Let's see what the future holds. But if they want to join your leadership or want to get in contact with you, I'm sure members of the diaspora listening would want to know how they can get in contact to offer some support. You can tell them in a jiffy, please.
Sure. So you can find us anywhere by just typing in UIC Jamaica. So our website is uicjamaica.com. Our Facebook handle is UIC Jamaica. Twitter is the same thing. So just look for UIC Jamaica anywhere. We also have UIC Liberty TV and UIC Jamaica TV as well. So you can find us there. Our telephone number is 876-293-0812. You can call us on that number or send us a WhatsApp message. And bear in mind, the UIC is your party. The UIC belongs to you. I am the convener. I am the founder. I am giving this as a gift to the Jamaican people for us to create the governance that we want to enjoy the Jamaica that we deserve.
Okay, Sir Patterson. So there you have it. So thanks again. I will let you know when you get another chance to give another version of the plans for Jamaica.
Absolutely.
So keep safe and we'll be in touch.
Thanks again. All the best. Good night, everyone. Take care.